It was supposed to be another routine day at work. I had been managing the software system that the company had relied on for years, and everything was running smoothly. I had designed it from scratch, refined it over the years, and it had become a core part of our operations. I knew it inside and out, and it worked flawlessly. There were no complaints, no major issues. Just a system that was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. But then, everything changed. The new CTO came in, and with him, a shift that would alter everything I had worked for. He called for a meeting, and when I walked in, I could tell from the way he spoke that this was something big. He announced that he was scrapping the entire software system I had built and maintained. In its place, they were implementing a superior cloud solution. The words hit me like a hammer. After all the years I had dedicated to developing and fine-tuning this system, after the countless hours spent ensuring everything ran smoothly, it was suddenly irrelevant. The software I had worked so hard to perfect was being discarded in favor of something untested. There was no discussion, no acknowledgement of the value of the system I had created, just a cold, corporate decision to replace it. And the worst part, this decision came right before our most critical federal audit, a time when the company could least afford any disruptions. I knew this new system wasn't ready, and yet there was nothing I could do to stop it. What followed was a whirlwind of chaos that would rock the company to its core during an audit we couldn't afford to fail. The shock of the moment left me speechless. I had poured everything into this system, and now it was being torn apart without a second thought. The trust I had built over the years seemed irrelevant, like it had been wiped away with one decision. For years, I had been the architect behind the company's software systems. From the very beginning, I had poured my heart and soul into building the software that kept the company running smoothly. I didn't just write code. I created a system that was secure, efficient, and aligned with the company's long-term goals. It wasn't just a technical project for MIT, it was my legacy, something I had developed over the course of years, adapting it as the company grew and changed. I had seen the company through every challenge, ensuring that our software could handle the demands of an ever-evolving business landscape. The system I built wasn't just functional, it was a tool that empowered the team, streamlined our operations, and made us more competitive in the market. I knew every line of code, every function, every nuance. It wasn't just a piece of software. It was a reflection of my dedication and my commitment to the company's success. But the relationships I built around this system were equally as important to me. I had developed close partnerships with key clients and stakeholders, many of whom trusted me personally with the software's implementation and upkeep. They didn't just trust the technology, they trusted me, had always made sure to be available, to listen to their needs, and to provide them with solutions that would support their own businesses. I took pride in this, knowing that my work wasn't just helping the company, it was helping our clients succeed. However, when the new CTO arrived, everything changed. His vision of modernization didn't include the system that had been so successful for so long. Instead of recognizing the value of the foundation I had built, he saw it as outdated and in need of replacement. The idea of something new in advance was appealing to him. Even though I knew the software I'd created was still doing its job, doing it well. It's doing it better than most of the new solutions out there. It was hard to accept, but it became clear that the path he wanted to take didn't leave room for the work I had done. The system that had been at the core of the company's success was being discarded in favor of a flashy new cloud solution, one that promised efficiency but lacked the deep understanding and relationships I had built with both the company and our clients. In the months before the new CTO took action, I started noticing small, unsettling changes. At first, it was just the way he spoke, constantly bringing up cloud technology and how it was the future of the industry. It became the buzzword in every meeting, the centerpiece of every conversation. At first, I didn't think much of it. New technologies were always being discussed, and I had seen trends come and go. But then I realized there was little regard for the system I had spent years perfecting, the one that had been working seamlessly for the company. There was no recognition of its success, no acknowledgement of the years of effort I had invested into making it reliable and efficient. Every time I tried to present data showing how our system was performing well, the conversation would shift to the exciting possibilities of the cloud. It was as though they couldn't see the value in what had been built, dismissing it in favor of something shiny and new. Slowly, I began to realize that my hard work was being overlooked, swept aside in favor of a flashy solution that no one had fully tested or understood. The more I heard about the cloud solution, the more I felt like I was being pushed out of the conversation. It wasn't just the CTO, it was the entire shift in mindset across the company. People were buying into the idea that the cloud was the answer to everything. It could solve all the problems without considering the reality of implementation or the risks involved. Meanwhile, the system I had crafted over the years, with careful attention to detail and a deep understanding of our company's needs, was being brushed aside. I had always prided myself on my ability to adapt, but this wasn't about adapting, it was about being disregarded. The company seemed to be heading in a direction that I wasn't part of, a direction that didn't value the experience, knowledge, and hard-earned success of the system I had created. I felt like I was being pushed aside, like my contributions no longer mattered. As time went on, the unease grew stronger. I couldn't shake the feeling that the company was preparing for a shift, one that would leave me behind. I started questioning my place in all of this. Had I been wrong to trust in the system I had built? Was everything I had worked for now deemed obsolete? The decision was made official. It was cold and sudden. I was called into the CTO's office, and before I could even sit down, the words were out of his mouth. We've decided to move forward with the cloud solution. It's time to replace the system. There was no conversation, no discussion about my work, or the years I had dedicated to building and perfecting the software. There was no acknowledgement of my role in the company or the trust I had earned. It was just a flat, impersonal statement. He told me that the new cloud system would be better, more scalable, more future-proof. He didn't offer any concrete evidence, no data, no analysis to back up his claims, just a blanket statement that the cloud solution was superior. It didn't matter that our system had been running smoothly for years, handling every task with precision. It didn't matter that the team, the clients, and the stakeholders trusted the system I had built. All that mattered was the allure of something new and shiny. I had poured everything into that software. It was more than just code it. It was a reflection of my dedication, my creativity, and my commitment to the company. I had solved complex problems, streamlined operations, and built a system that worked. Yet in a matter of minutes, I was being replaced. The years of hard work, the late nights, the sacrifices, and the countless hours spent perfecting the system meant nothing. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. I wasn't just losing my job. I was losing everything I had built, everything I had worked for. The company I had helped grow was now moving in a direction that didn't include me, disregarding everything I had done in favor of something that had never been tested, something that didn't even consider the human side of the work I had spent years developing. I felt hollow, like everything I had given was now worthless. The company that once felt like home, the place where I had built my career, had cast me aside without a second thought. It wasn't just a decision, it was a betrayal of everything I had dedicated myself to. I walked out of that meeting in shock, my mind racing to process what had just happened. All my years of hard work, my tireless efforts, my system, it had been carefully crafted, meticulously fine-tuned, and it was now being discarded without so much as a second thought. The company that had once relied on me and my software was now placing its trust in something unfamiliar, a solution that no one truly understood. And what stung the most was knowing that the new system, despite its supposed superiority, had never been tested in the real-world scenarios that we faced. Day in and day out, as I sat in my car, the weight of it all began to sink in. I wasn't just losing my job. I wasn't just being replaced by some new technology. I was witnessing the unraveling of everything I had built, everything I had given to the company over the years. The pride I had once felt in my work was now replaced by a cold sense of futility. What made matters worse was the timing. The company was about to face a critical federal audit, one that could determine its future, and within days, the new system began to show cracks. Issues that were easily managed by my software started to pop up left and right. Processes slowed down, Data was lost, and the team began scrambling to solve problems that had never existed. Before, it was a disaster unfolding in real time. I had no part in it. I couldn't help but feel a sense of detached numbness as I watched the chaos unfold. I had spent years building relationships with clients, ensuring they were satisfied with the system that had worked for them. And now, they were at the mercy of a system that was failing. It wasn't just the loss of a job, it was the loss of my legacy, the loss of something I had given everything to. I wasn't there to fix the problems. I wasn't there to help. All I could do was watch as everything I had worked so hard for crumbled, knowing that I had been replaced by something that couldn't possibly understand the atrocities and trust that my system had built. That night, I sat in my office, staring at the blank screen of my computer. The glow from the monitor seemed so stark in the darkness of the room. The silence around me was deafening, pressed in on me, suffocating me, and I felt a crushing weight on my chest. I had built this system, nurtured it, and perfected it. Over the years, I had put everything into it knowing it was something the company could rely on, something that worked. But now it was being replaced by something untested. Something that was already starting to fail. The thought of everything I had poured myself into slipping away so easily was unbearable. I had dedicated years to making sure everything ran smoothly. I had dealt with the challenges, fixed the bugs, and constantly refined the system to meet the company's needs. And yet, now that work seemed like it meant nothing. It felt like the foundation of my career was being swept away, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The company that once trusted me, the people who once relied on my work, were now watching as everything I had worked for started to unravel. It was like watching a house I had built from the ground up begin to fall apart. I had invested so much into this job, into the success of the company, and now I was powerless to save it from the chaos the new software was bringing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fight for what I had built, to make them see the value of the system that had kept everything running smoothly for years, but I felt powerless. My voice had been drowned out by corporate decisions, by a direction that didn't value the work I had done. I was no longer part of the solution. I was just an observer, watching as everything I had built was torn down. Piece by piece, I sat there, consumed by the overwhelming sense of loss, knowing that there was nothing I could do to fix it. I had given everything, and now I was left with nothing but the echoes of my own frustration. The next morning, I woke up with the crushing reality of what had happened. The weight of the decision, the abruptness of it all, hung heavy in my mind. I had spent years building a career, pouring everything I had into a company I believed in, and now my role had been rendered irrelevant. The sense of loss was staggering. I had always believed my work was more than just a job. It was my purpose, my identity. But now it felt like I had no place in a company that no longer valued what I brought to the table. The federal audit was looming, and I couldn't escape the feeling that things were already spiraling out of control. The new system, this so-called superior solution, was already causing problems. Issues that I had warned about, issues that would have been avoided with the system I had perfected, were now popping up in the worst possible time. The audit, which was supposed to be a chance to showcase the company's success, was on the brink of disaster, and I wasn't there to fix it. The thought that the company I had worked for, the team I had led, was now facing failure without me was almost too much to bear. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I had worked for, everything I had helped build, was slipping through my fingers. The new system was unraveling faster than anyone could have anticipated, and all I could do was watch. I wanted to help. I wanted to fix the mess that was being created. But I had been pushed aside, left in the dust, and I had no place in the company anymore. The company that had once felt like home now felt like a foreign place. The halls once filled with familiar faces now felt cold and distant. The trust I had earned, the relationships I had built, seemed irrelevant in the face of corporate decisions. I was no longer part of the team, and the isolation hit harder than I expected. The work that had once defined me was no longer mine to control, and the sense of loss was overwhelming. Everything felt uncertain. My future felt uncertain. And the hardest part was realizing that I had no control over it anymore. I couldn't just let this go. I couldn't walk away from everything I had worked for without at least seeking answers. I needed to understand why this decision was made, why my years of dedication, my work, my system, had been so easily discarded. So I returned to the office with a heavy heart and a mind full of questions. I walked in, determined to get some clarity from the CTO, to ask him how he could make this change without even a second thought. When I sat down with him, the coldness in his demeanor was palpable. There was no sympathy, no recognition of what I had contributed to the company's success. He was dismissive, as if this was just another business transaction, something that didn't involve the human side of the equation. The audit was happening, and the consequences of their decision were starting to unfold, but he seemed completely unfazed. "This is the direction we're taking," he said, as if that was the only explanation I needed. No apology, no understanding of the consequences, no acknowledgement of the impact this decision was having, not just on the company, but on the team, the clients, and me. It was as if the years I had given meant nothing to him. To him, it was all about efficiency, cost-cutting, and progress at any cost. I tried to explain the risks. I tried to remind him that we were in the middle of a critical audit and that the new system wasn't ready, wasn't tested, and wasn't reliable. But his response was the same. "This is the direction we're taking." The words echoed in my mind, cold and final. There was no room for discussion, no chance to make my case. The decision had been made and nothing could change it. It wasn't about what was best for the company or the people who had invested years of their lives into it. It was just a business decision. The problem was, I wasn't just a number or a cog in the machine. I was a person who had been discarded. My hard work meant nothing. The frustration was overwhelming. How could he be so detached? How could they not see what they were doing? I was left standing there, powerless, knowing that nothing would change. The system I had built was being torn apart, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The weeks following the disastrous audit were difficult, no doubt about it. The company, once a place where I felt valued, now seemed like a distant memory. The new system had caused chaos. I couldn't help but watch as it all unfolded. Everything I had built was now exposed as flawed by those who had replaced it. But as painful as it was, I realized that I couldn't stay angry forever. I couldn't allow the bitterness of being discarded to consume me. I had to find a way to rebuild, to reclaim the power over my future that had been stripped away. So I started reconnecting with old colleagues, those who had once respected me and my work, and sought advice from those who had navigated similar challenges. Slowly, I began to remember my worth beyond the company. I reached out to people who had once been a part of my professional network, people who had seen the value in me long before the CTO had dismissed it. Conversations with industry peers gave me a new perspective, and hearing their encouragement reminded me that I still had skills and connections that were valuable. I also started exploring new opportunities, seeking paths that allowed me to use the experience I had gained over the years. It wasn't easy. It was humbling, even frustrating at times, to consider stepping into new roles or industries. But I began to see that there were new ways I could make an impact, new ways I could apply my expertise to different challenges. With every step forward, even the smallest victory, an interesting lead, an interview request, or a simple email of encouragement, I regained a piece of the confidence I had lost. The more I allowed myself to step away from the toxic situation, the more I realized that I didn't need to be defined by the company or the project I had lost. I had proven myself time and time again, and that didn't disappear overnight. I could rebuild, could forge a path forward on my own terms outside of the shadow of a company that no longer valued me. With each small success, I found a bit of the strength I thought I had lost. And in that strength, I rediscovered the power I had over my own future. Looking back, I realized that being forced out wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter in my life. At first, it felt like a sharp, painful cut, like my world had come crashing down around me. The betrayal stung deeply. I had dedicated so many years to a company that had suddenly decided I was no longer needed, and the loss was overwhelming. But in time, I came to understand that this moment, as painful as it was, pushed me to explore new horizons and reinvent myself. The pain of being discarded by the company faded, replaced by a growing realization: I don't need to rely on any one company or system to define my worth. I had always believed that my identity was tied to my work, to my role in the company. But now, I see that I am far more than the job I lost. I am capable of so much more than I ever gave myself credit for. I'm stronger than ever. The person I am today is someone who has faced adversity and come out on the other side, more resilient and more aware of my own abilities. The experiences I had, the skills I developed, and the lessons I learned are all part of the foundation I'm building. Now, my future is no longer dictated by the decisions of others, it is in my hands. I will build something of my own, something that reflects who I am and what I truly want. This time, it will be on my terms. The path forward may not be easy, and I know there will be challenges, but I'm ready for them. I have the strength, the knowledge, and the determination to create the life I want. I won't let anything or anyone take that away. This chapter of my life closed, but a new one is beginning, and I am ready to write it.